Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
2 certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only 2 best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go. Hey.
Hey. We have a really good expert interview for you today. Amin Lakhani is a comedian, writer, and disabled antihero. He was born with a neuromuscular condition called Charcot-Marie-Tooth Syndrome, which causes his muscles to atrophy. He has used a power wheelchair since the age of 15 and has significant fine motor impairments. He graduated from an Ivy League university, worked at a Fortune 500 company, and gained internet notoriety as the dating coach on wheels. He now shares his life lessons and dark humor online and other places where nobody has asked for it.
I love him. He's so, obviously he's a comedian. He's funny and he's so unique and also very, very, very relatable. And there's so much that you're going to learn from him. I really loved kind of like the theme of the conversation, which was like, I think you just need to get over yourself. Like, it just, there gets a point where you get very tired of your own bullshit. And then what do you do? So I hope you guys are inspired by this conversation with Amin, and we will be back at the end.
Hi, Amin.
Hey.
Hi. Hey, guys.
I've been very excited to have this conversation with you. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
I think I'm more excited, possibly.
Oh, well, I'll I don't know. I'll read it. I'll bet you for it or something. Yeah.
You'll concede? Okay. All right. I win. I accept.
So people heard a little bit, a very brief kind of little bio that we read a few minutes ago,
Sure.
But that does not replace you kind of getting into your own story. So would you, wherever you want to dive in, however you want to do it, I want you to share your story with people.
Okay. Sure. So I am not Batman, which you're probably assuming right now based on my voice.
Yeah, you do have now that I'm just listening to your voice and focusing on that, you do have a little bit of a Christian Bale situation going on.
I don't hate it.
I don't hate it.
Okay. I do really well on phone dates, I gotta say. So
I can see why.
I think it works. Yeah. But anyway, not Batman, not secretly Batman, as has been alleged on the internet. But I was born with a neuromuscular condition called Charcot-Marie-Tooth. That's kind of the origin story, probably why people are so interested in me. I don't think it probably don't have that interesting of a personality as I think I do. But the disability was kind of the starting, and so. My parents are also immigrants to this country, the US. In their culture, disability was this very taboo, awful thing. And so they didn't really know what to do with it. But of course, I was their son. So they were going to, love me and give me all the potential opportunities to succeed. So very early on in my life, I remember my father saying to me, you're not going to be able to do physical labor when you grow up. So you have to develop your mind so that you can provide for yourself in the future. And of course, you said it in my language, so it has different connotations, but in the language is Urdu. But that has always stuck in my mind from a very young age. So I was always very focused on, I didn't know where my condition was going to go. I actually was able to walk and get around okay when I was younger. But at the age of 15, I had to have back surgery, and I've used a power wheelchair since then. But for my entire life, I've been very focused on achievement and getting ahead and making sure I take care of myself and making sure I have ways to provide value or get a good job or things like that. And that's been a very core value of mine. So I guess other interesting things that happened. So with that ethos, I went to an Ivy League university, graduated with multiple degrees in 4 years. I went to work for Microsoft at my dream job. And honestly, I couldn't have been happier career-wise. I was well off financially. I loved the team I was in. I was getting promoted quickly, but there was still this part of me that was something felt like it was missing. And it was because throughout my entire life, I was so focused on achieving like sort of those external metrics of success, like finances or career or education. I was always very good at that, but it really, really struggled in the other departments like socializing or dating. I didn't have a ton of friends growing up. Like I was okay, but I always felt kind of like an outsider, never really felt like I belonged. And even through college, I actually didn't go on a single date up until I graduated college. And then when I did finally go on a date, finally work up the courage, because at that point I was like, all right, what else do I need to do to like, quote unquote, get girls, right? Like I was like one of the smartest kids in my class, went to an Ivy League school, got a great job, have a home, a car, like all these things. Like, what is it, right? So finally worked up the courage, read a bunch of garbage on the internet of what to do, which was not good. And I finally went on that date and told this girl how I felt. And she said, I just don't see myself dating somebody in a wheelchair.
Ooh.
And that was really tough to hear. On the one hand, I respected the honesty. On the other hand, it was really tough to hear because, of course, I thought, will any girl ever be interested in me? Like, is this why I've never dated? Is this why it's not worked out? So I moved to Seattle, started my job, and this was bugging me. And I finally hired my own dating coach, found someone who didn't seem sleazy, seemed pretty focused on building solid social skills and just connecting with people. Hired him, spent a bunch of money and a bunch of time with him and his girlfriends. It was a pair, actually, like you guys, and learned tremendous social and dating skills. And I don't know, I think I've been on like over 50 first dates at this point, maybe 45 or 50, and had like several relationships. And not only just the dating aspect, but learned how to make really solid friendships. And now like I have friends I can call at any time and I feel really close to. I learned how to just make connections with people instantly. And I became a public speaker for a little while, did some like fashion consulting for a little while, and then decided to do dating coaching myself and called myself the dating coach on wheels. And people kind of ate it up. And I was in this video where kids asked me about my disability as well as being a dating coach. It went kind of viral. And that was really cool. And then I was like, okay, I've done that. I wasn't so excited about the dating coach aspect anymore. And then I came across comedy. I've always been a huge fan of comedy growing up, like loved watching stand-up comedy and decided to pursue it myself. I mean, of course, without the stand-up part. I'm glad you didn't laugh because that's a very cheap joke.
I mean, I had to stop myself from laughing, just so you know.
It's not a good joke.
Okay.
It's not a good joke, but I mentioned it. And that's where I really found what I think I've been looking for as long as I can remember is a sense of community where I can just be myself. Because I'm not in Seattle right now. I'm in Chicago because of the pandemic. And just last night, I hung out with 3 friends from that comedy. So I started an open mic in Seattle, met a bunch of people, established a great sense of community. People came to the open mic. Comedians came to the open mic regularly. And I formed these really awesome friendships and hung out with those guys on video chat last night. And it was so awesome because I could just be totally myself. I have a really dark sense of humor. I think it comes from, I don't want to generalize, but I feel like it is common with people with disabilities because we have to deal with a lot of hard shit on a daily basis, and it's a coping mechanism. So the whole reason I turned to comedy was I felt very depressed and I'd say borderline suicidal, and I had to find some way to use that energy in a productive way instead of just stewing in it. So I turned that towards comedy, and very dark comedy, which I have always enjoyed. And yeah, that's where I'm at now. And now I'm like, okay, I have all these things under my belt. Like I love technology. I do still enjoy talking about dating. I enjoy helping people, and I really love a dark, twisted sense of humor. So I'm now hoping to combine that all into just creating content and being supported by people that want that for some reason or another.
That's what I'm so amazed by when I hear that whole story is all of the levels of vulnerability that you had to work through. I mean, like all the way up to leading to comedy. Like that's one of the more vulnerable things that you can do too, is stand in front of a room full of people and try to make them laugh. So every step of the way, this just took so much courage to be vulnerable. And there's just so many fears that come with that kind of vulnerability. I'm curious what some of the limiting beliefs were that you uncovered back when you first were working with that dating coach.
Sure. Also, I'm upset that you didn't show me your dog because I heard a dog barking. And
I'm sorry.
That's not fair. But anyway.
I can invite her in here at the end. She'd be more than happy to be on camera. Okay. But I just moved 2 weeks ago. And so now I'm in like a smaller condo, and it's like pretty much impossible to keep her from barking. And, I don't take her to daycare because of the whole COVID thing anymore. Like, it's also just way out of my way now. So this is what we do.
Sure.
She's also a little mouthy, and we like that about her, but like it's also frustrating.
Anyway.
Hey, it's reality, right? I mean, it's all good. One of the things in comedy is like whenever there's something out of the ordinary, just like address it, right? And that everyone's like, okay, we're on the same page. Like,
that's
cool.
Funny.
Everyone's bought in.
I feel like I would have, like in another life, I think I would have loved to be a comedian. And I'm like, I do that all the time naturally. I just call out things that other people are only thinking or that, I'm like, that. Yeah, I do.
Hey, check out open mics. I mean, there's a ton of online open mics these days. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, online. See, you could be an introvert and never leave your house and get into a new hobby.
Rachel needs to try that.
Anyway.
I agree. I would attend.
Sorry to...
I don't know if I would laugh, but I would attend.
That's fair. That's fair.
The laugh has to be earned.
It has to be earned, yes.
So, okay, sorry to divert from you, but Kristen asked about what your fears and limiting beliefs that you worked through.
Right.
Sure. So the belief that people don't want to connect with me, right? Like for so long, I just hadn't tried and didn't really know good systems to connect with people. So both in dating or in friendships, I just felt like people for some reason didn't like me. But once I started putting into place certain things like listening to people or asking good questions, people love to connect with me. And now it's almost like, okay, like it's like too much, like I need a little break. So that was one big limiting belief.
That's such an interesting one.
Well, and it's proof of how I think a lot of limiting beliefs are born, which is I'm just afraid the same results I've always had are going to be the results I keep getting. You kind of used your past experience to predict your future. And if you don't like your past experience, then you just think, I guess that's what I have to settle for. Yeah. Right. But overcoming the limiting belief means maybe my future can look different.
Right. And if you've never tried anything different, like it's the whole insanity thing, right? Like trying the same thing and assuming or hoping for different results, like never going to work out.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what did you start doing differently to overcome that particular belief?
So I think to go further into it, it was based on feeling like, as someone with a disability, specifically as someone who uses a wheelchair, that I'm just like strange or odd, or like people don't want to associate with somebody with a disability. And I tried to hide that disability as much as I could. Like I would wear like baggy clothes or I would never talk about my disability. I would never, ever, ever bring it up because I just wanted to be as small a part of my life as possible. So what I did differently were a few things. One was I started dressing very differently. Like I'm way more relaxed about it now, but I started wearing pretty flashy things, which kind of told people, hey, like, go ahead, look at me, right? Like, because they're going to do it anyway. So why not just own it and be like, yeah, this is me. I look pretty different from most people and I'm okay with that. So yeah, I started dressing differently. I wore these like big blue glasses. Like I think I saw a picture recently. I was wearing like purple pants and like a teal blue shirt, and I had my hair dyed yellow. And like now I'm very like neutral in my color choices. But for a while, I was just like, I just need to undo all this shame I had around being in this body. So that was step one.
Well, I think that's what confidence is, right? I mean, deciding like, hey, this is who I am and I'm going to own it and I choose to like this. And if you like it, great. And if you don't, great. But knowing that and doing that are very different things, of course. But when you can get to the point of really owning this is me, you know, flaws and all, then that radiates out to other people as that's someone who's really secure within themselves. And that makes such a big difference.
Yeah. And it took my coach to help me realize that, right? Like we first talked about, he was the first person, the guy from the group was the first person that I ever spoke to about being in a wheelchair after I had to use one. So from the age of 15 to the age of 23, I didn't talk about it with anyone, not my family, not my friends. I just ignored it. And he was able to get to the root of that issue and help me realize like, okay, I need to own it. He essentially asked me like, okay, is there anything you can do to change it? Because he was like, do you like it? And I said, no, I don't like it. He said, well, is there anything you can do to change it? And I said, no. And he said, well, then you have to change your attitude about it, which was very powerful.
Yeah. Whew.
So,
okay. You said that was step one. You said there was more steps.
There's 3 steps. Yeah. So the second step was to bring up so when I meet somebody new, they're always going through this. It's a little bit awkward for them because they don't know, like, unless they've had experience with people with very visible disabilities. But even then, like, everyone with a disability is very different, right? Like some people are okay talking about it, like I am now. Some people are not, like I was in the past. And also people have different sensitivities. So it's a lot to expect someone to know all that and be comfortable with you. Like, it's great. I mean, it would be awesome if society moved to that point where we're all just like, okay with that. But I think it's just human nature to see things that are not ordinary and just be curious. And I think not being able to address that, kind of like in comedy, when something weird happens, not to say that people with disabilities are weird, but when something out of the ordinary, something unexpected happens, it's natural for our minds to sort of fixate on that until it gets addressed. And for that to create tension, and that creates a barrier to connection. So what I started doing was immediately joking about my condition. And it could have been as simple as, like, when I'd go up to someone and want to say hi, I would just say, hey, I just rolled over here because I wanted to say hi. And that immediately lets them know, like, hey, this guy is aware of who he is. And not just like with disability, but in general. And that puts people immediately at ease. So like, even if they have questions about the disability, they know that, okay, like it's not something I can't talk about, but it gives them that little momentary relief of like, oh, okay, like we might talk about it at some point. And that lets them let their guard down and just connect.
Yeah. Otherwise, if you think something's off limits, then you're tiptoeing around it. And then you don't know, you can't really be yourself, and then they can't really be themselves. And it's hard to establish real connection.
Yeah. Permission for everyone to be themselves from the beginning is what you're giving them.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's huge.
So yeah, like if they're if they're walking on eggshells, it's going to be really hard for them to be themselves. And yeah, like for me to, I'm not showing myself, so it's going to be hard for them to show themselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So ready for step 3?
Yes.
Okay. So step 3 was to switch my thinking from believing that I need to be interesting to connect with people to I need to be interested in other people to connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about how awesome I am or what cool things I've done. It's more about how can I make this person help this person feel comfortable enough to share themselves, and how can I give them focused attention, because that is the gift that's the most precious gift we have to give, which is our focused attention to someone and to make someone feel heard and seen. And that's really the way to get to connection with other human beings.
That is such good advice for people who are feeling kind of lonely. I know there's a lot of people feeling lonely just in general, because I coach my clients around this all the time. I know, especially right now when we're all feeling a little bit more isolated, it's hard to maintain those deep kind of intimate connections. So I love that. It's so simple. Just genuinely get curious and ask about someone else. And people love talking about themselves. Like, just give them a little space to go into whatever's on their mind at the moment. And it really does create natural connection.
I very clearly remember way back when Kristen and I were getting coach trained that we were really young when I went into coach training. I was like, I hadn't even turned 24 yet. I was 23 when I enrolled. And so I was kind of immature in a lot of ways. And one of the things I was complaining about.
Has anything changed? I'm kidding.
I would say, no, very seriously, more mature, more confident, just as salty as ever, probably.
I can attest, that's true.
Yeah. But definitely so much more understanding of myself. And so I don't think I would have ever said what I said at this time. But what I said was, I was like complaining about how none of the people out there were going to get me, because it was very important that people get me and understand me. And I was so different, which is silly, because I'm like, you thought that, and you have more reason to think that,
we're all
right. But like that's the thing, is everyone thinks that. And I was saying, no one gets me. No one's going to understand me. And my trainer was like, why are you so concerned on being understood when what needs to be happening is you need to be offering understanding. And I was like,
as a coach, right? I remember since I went through the IPEC, the first part of the coaching, I commented to my friend who invited me. I was like, isn't this just how to like be a good friend? Like, what? But like, what? Like, this sounds like. Or no, sorry, I commented in the chat to the instructors. I was like, can you teach this to everybody I want to date? Because that would be awesome.
Yes, seriously.
Right? Like intuitive listening and like owning your own baggage and your own shit. Yes.
And validating people's experiences. All of that is just like so huge for human connection. And most people are terrible at it.
Yeah. So if you are seeking to be seen and acknowledged and understood, then you have to ask, how good of a job am I doing of that with other people? Mm-hmm. How am I making them feel seen and heard and acknowledged and understood? And if I'm not, that might be a clue to where I need to do a little bit more work to have more connection, like real intimate, like valuable connection.
Okay. So you started trying these different approaches. What results did you start getting that were different?
I just started making that, like, all my relationships just improved, right? It wasn't just friendships or dating. I mean, even at work, people just felt comfortable around me, and I was able to connect with them. And like, there's a friend or a work colleague who I'd worked with for a little while, and I decided, okay, I'm just going to try to get to know him. And I saw that he had a flag that I hadn't seen in his office. So I asked him about it, and he told me about his country of origin, and he was from Ethiopia, and he told me about he recommended some good Ethiopian restaurants, and like I went to them, and we were able to like talk about the cuisine and all that. And then, then when I was going to ask him to help me try to get something done before the end of the weekend. Like it was way more of a warm connection. He was totally willing to, go that extra step for me. I mean, it was as simple as, or not simple, but just like kind of random connection. So I would always get gas filled up at this one gas station near where I worked. And I would go on a regular schedule every week. So it'd always be the same woman there who would help me fill up the gas. And I would just start talking to her and ask her about her life and where her past. And she told me she was from a country called Eritrea. And then one day she was like, "Oh, I'm traveling to go see my family." And I was like, "Oh, cool. That's awesome. Like, have a great time." And then I saw her like a couple weeks later when she came back, and she like brought me something from the country.
Oh my
And
gosh,
I was
so
like,
nice.
and all I had done was ask her to help me fill up gas and then have a conversation with her for the like 2 or 3 minutes, once a week over like a couple months. So yeah, I was like, wow, this is incredibly powerful stuff.
Right. And it's not this crazy amount of effort. It's a little
so
bit
easy.
uncomfortable, right? Like, especially if your default is to just maybe, just quietly sit while someone fills up your gas tank or whatever, I mean, or to just, say hi to a coworker or a neighbor as you're, passing them. Like, it's easy to not do that, but it's also not that hard to have a 2-minute conversation with someone that ends up like actually making you a friend.
Right. Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. So you were getting clearly
Very
a lot different and like better results with everyone that you were encountering, even like the lady at the gas station, which I love.
I mean, also went on a ton more dates, right? Which is awesome.
Yeah.
And fun in of itself.
What was that? Okay. One of my, I feel like I work on this in myself. I work on this with other people, is overcoming the assumption that because something happened once, it's going to happen again. And I think with dating, and especially in the story of what happened to you, going, like having the courage to go out on like a date with someone. And then she's like, I just don't see how this is going to work. And then how much nerve did it take you to work up to, all right, I'm going to assume that wasn't correct. And that I'm going to be open enough to be proven wrong, that maybe that was just like her perspective and that's not going to be everyone's perspective.
Yeah. So I was actually pretty practical about it because I shared this with my coach. I was like, why would I share this doubt? I'm like, why would somebody be interested in me? Right. Like I can't like lift a girl up. I can't like, reach the top cabinet. I can't like do all these things for her that like supposedly men are supposed to do. And he said, look, like, that's probably true. Like, there's probably a lot of women out there that would not be interested in a guy in a wheelchair. And that's just an immediate disqualifier. Let's say out of 100, 95, that's just an immediate disqualification. Are you going to stop, or are you going to get to that? Are you going to go through the 100 so you can find, let's say it's 99. Are you going to let that stop you? Or are you going to go through the 100 to find the one that it's not a disqualification for?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it was pretty clear. I was like, I want this. Like, I want to date. Like I've always wanted to. So of course I'm going to go through the 100. It wasn't a question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like, am I willing to do what it takes to find counterproof against what I have been assuming is true? If I'm assuming nobody's interested in me, can I go find any counterproof of that, which all of a sudden makes that instinctively not true? Like, it can't be true if some people are like, yeah, hey, I'm interested.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a huge difference.
Right. He said, are you willing to hear 99 no's to get to the one yes?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. So then the no's were not as, he also helped me reframe how I would view rejection. It wasn't like, oh, like rejection means you're never going to find someone. It's just, okay, I'm one step closer to that yes.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a no actually feels like
powerful.
Progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And it is progress.
Yeah.
Right. Because you have clarity now, and that's fantastic.
I also feel like based on how many first dates you've been on, I actually don't feel like it was a 99-1 situation here. Because
No way.
I'm doing the math. You would have had to go on like 500. You'd have to ask like 500 women out.
So if I went on 50 first dates,
No, wait, 5,000.
that would be,
5,000.
if it's not, 5,000.
Listen, I got into podcasting. I'm not a mathematician.
I don't think 5,000 is too far off.
Okay.
But maybe it's like, and maybe it's not 2%. I don't know. But I've asked out a lot of women. I mean, now things have shifted where I'm like I'm more selective about like where like I'll talk to people and be like, yeah, I don't think this is gonna work. Cause like now I know it's like, it's not really about finding the one person. It's about finding someone who I feel compatible with. So, so there's like, that's shifted a little bit, but yeah, early on, like it definitely, it was just like, what's it called? That type of gun, the shotgun. It was just shotgun approach after shotgun approach, like ask one after the other and like just get. I actually loved hearing no, because I was like, okay, now I have clarity and I can like move on. Right. The worst was people being like, maybe, or I don't know, or all that. And like ended up wasting time and all that. I'm like, just be honest. Like I'm totally okay with this. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be, I mean, now I'm like, some people are okay with the disability, but like the personality is just too rough for them. So I'm like, whatever it is, just let me know. Right. Like this is me. This is who I am. Like you're either in or you're out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think the kind of trajectory you're describing here is how so much change happens. You have to go almost to the other extreme of the spectrum. It's like, I didn't ask out anyone for
now
years and years.
You're going to get asked out and you're going to get asked out.
Now it's everyone, right? I mean, maybe not everyone, but like you have to go to an extreme where you just prove to yourself, I can do this enough times. And then you settle somewhere in the middle.
Where
like,
you have some discernment all of a sudden.
It's not just me asking, like it's also me saying, do I even want to ask?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
It takes a while to get to that point.
Yeah, before it was just automatic. I was like, okay, talk to a girl who I think is cute. Just ask her. Like just
is she a girl?
Yeah.
She gets asked out.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I also am curious, just when we're talking like what the experience of working through so many like deep limiting beliefs, you're obviously getting different results, right? You're going out on a lot of dates. You are making a lot more deeper connections, a lot more friendships, almost to the point where you're like, dude, I need a little alone time. How are you feeling different on the inside?
I think it's funny because there are moments where I still feel like my old self, right? Of the guy who didn't have a lot of friends, never had gone on a date, didn't have the courage to ask. And I think that's why these sorts of conversations are pretty important. And I have them sometimes with my friends where like close friends that have seen my changes and can affirm like, yeah, things have really shifted, because it's easy to not take stock of all those changes. Because like as with, we live with ourselves every day, right? So we don't notice the changes as significantly. So yeah, like especially now I'm like, oh my God, like I've done a lot of stuff, but I also don't like to be I don't ever want to be too full of myself, or think like I've, made it or whatever, because I want to stay hungry. That's just who I am. And, I value that. So yeah, I guess I feel good when I pause and remember all the changes. But oftentimes I can sometimes still feel like my old self, to be frank.
Well, but I'm glad that you're normalizing that, because I think that people unconsciously, I'm not sure they think about it, but they might unconsciously assume that you get to this point where all of a sudden you're just confident and you're just happy and you're just grounded. And I'm like, no. You're just a constant work in progress. And you can have days where it's like most of the time I feel good. But then, yeah, of course I'm going to have days where I backslide into my negative thoughts. And honestly, those negative thoughts are not even super personal. I've experienced as a coach. It's just like, these are my default thoughts. And they got set at a very particular, age or time in life. And I just keep returning to them like a boring, playlist that I just keep playing. And that's perfectly normal and understandable. And I think that it sounds like you've done a really good job of remembering, even when you do end up back in that place, that that's not necessarily real, because you've also done a really great job of, accumulating evidence that that's not real. Like, you've kind of proven to yourself, well, yes, these are thoughts and I have them, but I've also done plenty to kind of counteract those thoughts, which is really helpful.
Yeah. And that playlist is comfortable, right? Because I think it's always based, you guys probably know better than I do, but I imagine it's usually based in like safety mechanism, right? Like, or some sort of protection mechanism where I believe like nobody would be interested in me. That protected me from the risk of asking and getting rejected.
Yeah. Because it's so vulnerable.
Totally. Right. Yeah. The procrastination people find themselves in, no one's going to like this if I make this piece of art anyway. So no, it's just,
why bother?
Why bother? Right. It's all just very self-defeatist, because then you don't have to show it to anyone. You don't have to expose yourself. You don't have to be vulnerable. And like Kristen said earlier, kind of your whole life has been nothing but an experiment in vulnerability, it would seem.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Like I 100% believe in what Brene Brown talks about a lot with vulnerability and like getting in the arena and getting, marred and beaten up and learning from it is I feel like that's a more worthwhile way to live than to just sit back and watch things go by.
That's why you're into stand-up, because I feel like that is the arena, right?
Yes,
Like,
for sure. Yeah.
Do you ever like kind of bombing? I've heard some comedians have like this secret, almost like sick appreciation for bombing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sick and twisted, but that I draw my line at that.
Okay.
It does not feel good. Yeah,
Okay.
It doesn't feel good. I mean, after the fact, it's pretty fun to laugh about.
Yeah.
So here's what I like. It's okay to bomb when I'm with a good friend. Like I always find
that's what I've heard. That's funny, right? Because you got a friend to appreciate it with.
Right.
Like if they're in the audience, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Or like if I can go hang out with them after, because like bombing is just really like, it's a traumatic experience, right? So
right.
I feel like it creates this sort of I don't know. It's an emotional wound, and
it's like trauma bonding.
Like you need a close friend to be like, hey, it's okay. Or honestly, I don't know if it's most comedians, but the comedians I hang out with, like when they make fun of me for it, yeah, it feels like okay, like they always make fun of me, right? So okay, things are just as they were. Like nothing's changed. I still have my people. Like okay, I didn't perform so well in that situation, but I'm still loved and cared for by the people who mattered.
Okay, so as someone who, I don't know that you could pay me enough to do stand-up.
You would be, I don't feel like I'm exaggerating when I say you'd be the worst stand-up comedian ever.
Ever? Wow. I'll take that.
Why? Why not?
I don't know.
Well, she hates being on stage, first of all. She also gets like complete blank when put on the spot. Like her mind will just white out.
I'm not sure what words would come out of my mouth. It might be amusing to
She's
witness.
Also naturally not very funny. I mean, we've just got to say that.
I appreciate I'm attracted to humorous people.
Okay.
And I'm the one who laughs and they're the one who makes jokes. And it's a good balance.
I see. Okay.
I'm not saying anything she doesn't already know about herself.
Right. So you'd actually be, so are you interested in, I'm not asking you out, but are you interested in dating comedians?
I think I totally would be.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I don't know. I think that they might be a little bit too depressive for you.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. Is that always?
Most comedians
that kind of part of the deal?
Oh yeah. Most comedians have like a real anxious, depressive streak.
Yeah. Thanks. It's pretty common.
I say this as like a lifelong anxious, depressive, but I see a kinship in.
Hey, you also said we just started this out saying you should do stand up. So maybe this is just me being like, that sounds terrifying, but I feel like there had to be a whole new set of limiting beliefs that came up when you decided to go into stand-up comedy, because that is one of the more vulnerable experiences I can imagine.
I guess to an extent, I felt very empowered with comedy because I had done public speaking already, right? And I was like, okay, people are going to the reason I did comedy, which I don't think I covered, but was because I did public speaking and people would just like applaud and like, be like, yay, disabled guy giving a speech, like, go you. And that just felt so like easy. And I don't know, I don't like easy wins. And it just felt kind of borderline demeaning, right? Like, okay, even if I don't give a good speech, they're still going to clap and be quote unquote, what's called inspired, right? Because the fact that I woke up in the morning and like didn't kill myself and showed up here is enough for them.
Mm-hmm.
So comedy felt like a greater challenge. So I kind of enjoyed the challenge of it. And I also knew that because I have a disability, comedy is a weird world. Like the more, I guess, oppressed you are, quote unquote, societally, the more liberty you have to kind of say what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
so
true.
Like the standard for white non-disabled men is like really high. Like they're
thankfully,
they're
I'm glad that there's shit they're not allowed to joke about anymore. You know,
there is
a
one world that's hard for them.
Yes, yes. It's a very just place, which I also appreciate, because that meant that if I went up there and did not make people laugh, they weren't laughing is a very visceral reaction, right? People don't laugh because they feel bad for you, but they will clap if they feel bad. Mm-hmm. So, I felt pretty empowered. And that way I'm like, okay, I'm a like South Asian person with a disability. Like I got a lot of leeway here to say things, but, and also like I already shared this sort of dark sense of humor with some of my friends and they always laughed at it. And also the last thing was I kind of didn't care because I was like, I mean, it's a sick joke, but I was like, well, if this doesn't work out, like I could just kill myself, right? Like I still have that opportunity.
Kristen's like sad face and I'm laughing at that. So that kind of shows you the difference in our humor.
Right. Yeah. So it's pretty dark, but I was like, yeah, I mean, what do I really have to lose? I've already gotten to the point where I considered killing myself. Like how much worse could it really get? So.
Right. Like what's bombing after that? Who cares?
Right.
Also, I feel like stand-up there must be something kind of equalizing about it in a sense, because it's like everyone's just up there. And if you're good, you're owning your shit and you're calling stuff out. And so in that way, it's like everyone's just kind of up there, kind of spewing their insides and their baggage. And so it's like, well, yeah, I've got mine, but that guy has his too, and that girl has hers.
Yeah.
And so it's like there's not as much of a difference between us when we're kind of up there doing that.
Yeah. I heard this great joke once that stand-up is like a weird form of one directional group therapy.
Oh, completely. I can totally see how that's true.
Yeah.
Well, I tell some of my clients all the time, I'm like, I wish all of you knew all of each other's like inner thoughts, because everyone's having all the same kind of thoughts anyway, but they're only telling me and I'm only hearing it from one at a time. And I'm like, that's kind of what stand-up comedy is I'm just going to put all of my weird, crazy, dark thoughts
and
out
yours
there.
too, by the way, because I know what yours are as well.
Right.
And I know they're going to relate to it. And that's why they're laughing, because it's striking some sort of weird
truth chord.
Yeah. And so in a way, I love that there is a space where other people can see each other's insides and realize we're not that different, really. Mm-hmm. We're all having the same insecurities. We're all freaked out and kind of confused and just trying to make it through this life, and pretty sure we're doing it wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think that's why it's a great bonding mechanism. Like so the open mic that I produced and hosted, we did something that I think a lot of people enjoyed, which was uncommon, that after the, open mic show, we would all get together and give each other feedback on each other's jokes and help each other improve. Or like, we'd say, well, if you said this way, that might be funnier. And that allowed us to all bond over these things. And I think that's what created the stronger connections. Cause if you can laugh, if someone makes me laugh, then there's some sort of connection there of like, oh yeah, that weird thing you noticed, I also noticed it. And it makes people, I think, easier to approach and even want to approach you. So, yeah.
Okay, so I feel like I could talk to you for a long time just because you've got so many stories. I feel like you've lived like 8 lives already. Do you feel like that? You give off that vibe of like someone who's just lived a lot, you know?
I guess I'm always like of the mindset like there's so much more to do, right? So
I know, but I think you've accumulated a lot of experience. Just
I'd agree with that.
In the years you've already lived.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of wisdom.
I'm 31 for context.
Well, I had no idea. I was thinking you were in your 30s, but I had no idea. So I'm sad because now my birthday was yesterday, by the way.
Yeah.
So I'm now 32. So I'm now older than you, which makes me sad.
The last 24 hours.
Yeah. So yeah, but I mean, that's not a long life and you've accumulated a ton of experience and wisdom already. But
it's been a good ride.
But okay, if you were to leave people with like, just, I don't know, if you were to distill advice to people into like a nugget, which I know is very hard to do. I'm just curious what comes out when I ask you to do this. What would you say? Like, what would you leave people with?
I don't know. I don't know that I'm the person you should be listening to.
Oh, right? I think you are.
Okay.
Not to put you on the spot.
I don't know. Like I feel like a lot of people ask me for this and my perspective has always been like, hey man, like, or whoever, hey you, like, I'm just living my life. Like you've got, like people look at me and say, well, like you have a disability, you have it much harder, this and that. I'm like, like that's actually not a good assumption because I think a lot of people have things that are way more difficult than I do. And I don't see my life as like insanely difficult. I think I have some things that are hard, some things that I have privileges in, and some things that have gone very well for me in life. So I feel weird being like the person in the authoritarian position of like, here's what you should do with your life. But if you want to, like, I like to share my life, which is what we did today. And like, hey, if you learn something from it, cool. Like I'm just here sharing and trying to laugh and trying to like not murder anyone. Right. So
good goals.
Yeah. Like if you can learn something from that, that's awesome. But for me to distill it down into one thing feels it feels improper to say that I know what's right for your life more than you know. I think everyone knows what's right for themselves. I know I don't like when people tell me what to do. So I seek out information, I make my own decisions, and then I go through with what feels right to me. So I guess that would be the nugget is do what feels right to you.
Yeah. Well, I also want to pull out one other thing that you said that maybe wasn't intentional, but I liked it, which was you're not that special. Okay. No, none of you are that special, which means your fears aren't that special. Your limitations aren't that special. Your assumptions about what's possible for you isn't that special. And so if you don't hold on to those fears and those beliefs like precious objects, right? Like, no, you don't understand. I'm different. I can't do that. Then if you're just like, you know what, this is so run of the mill. This is so average. These fears are boring. I am bored by my own limitations and fears. Then you have a very different life experience after that.
Yep.
So yeah, I think you said
I was
that.
Special. Yeah, I thought sure. Fair. You can put words in my mouth.
Okay, cool.
But nothing else. So yeah, that is fair. That I thought I was like, I think special means like in my mind that has a positive connotation.
Yeah.
But like I think you mean it in a negative connotation of like, like I'm different from everyone, and I totally felt that before. But by implementing those things, like especially the listen to other people and ask about them, I realized how much in common I have with people and how much I can relate to other people.
Yeah.
And how much we have the same fears and doubts and we're working through the same shit. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I need to hear that because I'm one of those people who tends to default to thinking that my problems are uniquely flawed or uniquely fucked up, and they're not. That's just my brain telling me that I'm special in a negative way. And I think that all of us do that to some degree. So this is a really good example. Like you just have shared a lot of stories that are a good example of that's not true. None of that is actually true.
Yeah. I think you get to a really empowering point when you do get bored of your own inner cycle of thoughts over and over and over again. And at that point you have to ask, okay, this is boring. This is like, I'm sick of myself. What am I going to do instead? Well, and that's where everyone's going to be taking a very different path from that point. But that's the question I think everyone needs to ask.
Well, and for you, it was, I'm bored. I would rather get rejected 99 times if it means I might, get something good once. Like that's you must have been pretty bored to get to that point.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I remember considering hiring my coach because it was a lot of money. Like I don't think I'd ever spent that much money on anything else, like personally, right? Like school obviously was expensive and all that, but of something where I was like, okay, this is strictly for me. School's for me too, but like some sort of discretionary expenditure, which wasn't tied to like education or career. It is, but anyway, I'll stop circling around and get to the point. I remember considering hiring my coach, and I just went like, it was expensive. I was like, I don't know. I'm going to feel weird. Like now I'm going to have to tell people I've hired a dating coach. Like little did I know I would be advertising it to the internet. Right. But because I felt very insecure about it. But I remember just being like, God, I'm just so tired of like not being able to go on dates or being able to have friends. I'm so tired of just sitting in my place every Friday night, wishing like, I wish I had friends to hang out with after the work week or on the weekends, just like, sad, like honestly, like sad, probably watching some porn and just like eating garbage food and like all that. I'm like, I'm so tired of this life. Like I want something different. And I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter how much it costs. Like, cause if I don't find some way to change this, it's not worth it to keep living. So, and then things changed.
Yeah.
That's a good point to punctuate this conversation on. So where can they find you? Which they should want to do after this conversation.
Yeah. The best place is on my website, which is datingcoachonwheels.com.
You've got a lot of like really cool videos and
please go watch some of his videos.
Thank you. Yeah, I love the videos. They're all produced. Well, not all of them, but the ones, the vlogs and most of them are produced and edited by me, which is super fun. I love doing the video editing.
I didn't know you edited them and everything. That's cool.
Yeah. Which ones did you see? The speech. Well, the speech was just one take, but the comedy video was not edited by me. That was edited by a good friend who wanted to feature me there. But most of the ones on my homepage are edited by me.
Very cool.
He's got talent to spare, y'all.
Yeah. Hidden talents we didn't even know.
And then you're on Instagram too, right?
Yes.
Or at least
same handle.
I think I followed you. Yeah, I follow you on Instagram now. Well, thank you so much. This has been really fun. I'm glad that the universe sort of conspired to have us meet you because I couldn't think of a more interesting person who with like a more, kind of down to earth take to have had on the podcast. And people really need to hear this conversation. So I'm very curious to hear what people think. Obviously they can come share a comment. We always link to the site or where the episode lives on our site so that they can leave a comment. So I want to hear what you guys have to say after listening to this one. Yeah. And I'll share that with Amin. And thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. This has been amazing. I feel like I'm walking away with a bunch of insights. It's supposed to be for our listeners, but whatever.
This is secretly just for me. And
exactly.
This is how I make friends. I've tricked you now into becoming a friend.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, guys. It was really fun.
Okay, bye.
Okay. If you were inspired by that conversation, we do hope you'll leave a comment and just share what stood out to you or just what I think that he's really awesome at reframing things. So what maybe he reframed for you, link in episode notes as always.
This one was so relatable. Please let us know what you took away from it. I feel like you could have taken away like 25 nuggets of wisdom.
At least. So, okay, as we're wrapping up, one thing that we didn't mention at the beginning about getting over people pleasing, the course, is that we decided, because this was very popular a couple months ago, when we decided to offer this for a limited time, we're going to give people who sign up for the course an opportunity to add on a single coaching session, which again, we don't really do single coaching sessions for anyone other than former clients, and they have to email us. It's not something we like have on our site. It's something you can buy. So if you want to do a single coaching session, you can add that on for a much reduced rate. I mean, lower even than what an old client would get an invoice for if they asked me for one. So I think that's a really great like 1-2 punch, because you can go through most of the course, and then maybe closer to the end, we can have a coaching session around it and really help you integrate and process and
then you
take it to the next level.
Yeah, you get some self-study, you get some group support, and then you get some individual support. So you're kind of hitting this from all angles. I think it's a really good, like you said, like 1-2 punch, like deeper experience in let's just overcome this people pleasing. I won't say once and for all, but like, let's just give it a good kick in the butt.
All right. So, I mean, we said it enough at this point. Like, I'm just like, if you want to do it, do it. If you don't, that's fine. We'll be back next week. So link in show notes, or go to our site, cardionfire.com. You can go to work with us tab. Getting over people pleasing is one of the only options there. You would be hard pressed to miss it. And join us if you want this time around. And just another, I guess, one more reminder as I'm thinking about it. If you want to do it, but you're like, now is not a good time, but I could do it like next month, that's fine. I mean, you have forever access to the content. So you'll get the emails, you'll get everything you need. You just might then go back through it on your own. You won't necessarily have everyone posting in real time around it, but that's not necessarily a problem for some people or a deal breaker. So
and you can still go back and read everyone's comments, because
you're
they're
not
still going to be
anything.
relevant to what you're going through when you do it at your own pace. But yeah, it's true. If right now is not good timing, then you might not want to wait a year, or I don't know, however long before we potentially bring it back again. You can do it at whatever pace you want.
All right. So you know where to go and what to do. If I was about to say, when are we coming back? Not next Tuesday, or not Tuesday, because we're not doing a Magic 8 Ball. So we will be back Friday, week from now, with a brand new Dear Rachel.
Okay. See you then.
Bye.